Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, released in 2006, stands as one of the most commercially successful sequels of its era, and much of that success can be attributed to its remarkable cast. The film brought together a group of actors who were already well-known, rising, or uniquely suited to their roles, and it both reinforced and transformed their careers in significant ways. At the center of it all is Johnny Depp, whose portrayal of Captain Jack Sparrow had already become iconic after the first film, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Before stepping into the role of Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp was widely respected for his unconventional choices. He built his reputation through films like Edward Scissorhands' Ed Wood and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, often portraying eccentric outsiders rather than traditional leading men. This made his casting as a swashbuckling pirate initially surprising to some studio executives. However, what Depp brought to the role was precisely that unpredictability. His interpretation of Jack Sparrow, inspired in part by rock star mannerisms and a slightly off-balance comedic rhythm, transformed what could have been a standard adventure character into something entirely unique. In Dead Man's Chest, Depp expanded the character even further. He leaned more heavily into the comedic timing, physical humor, and unpredictable morality of Sparrow. The performance required balancing absurdity with moments of genuine cunning and vulnerability. The film's success cemented Depp as a global superstar rather than just a cult favorite. It also earned him another Academy Award nomination, further legitimizing blockbuster performances in traditionally serious award spaces. After this film, Depp's career shifted toward larger franchise roles in high-budget productions, including continued appearances in the Pirates series and collaborations with directors like Tim Burton. Another central figure is Orlando Bloom, who played Will Turner. Prior to Pirates, Bloom had already gained fame through his role as Legolas in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and its sequels. Those films established him as a heroic, physically capable, and visually striking leading man. However, Will Turner offered a slightly different angle. While still heroic, Will is driven by personal love, moral conflict, and a sense of duty rather than pure epic destiny. In Dead Man's Chest, Bloom's performance grows more complex. Will is no longer just a blacksmith-turned-hero. He is now entangled in moral compromises, forced to navigate alliances with pirates, and confront his own beliefs about loyalty and honor. Bloom brought a grounded sincerity to the role, acting as a counterbalance to Depp's chaotic energy. The film helped solidify Bloom's place in major Hollywood franchises, though it also typecast him for a period as the noble, romantic hero. Keira Knightley plays Elizabeth Swann, and her career trajectory is one of the most notable transformations tied to this film. Before Pirates, Knightley had appeared in films like Bend It Like Beckham and had a supporting role in Star Wars, Episode I, The Phantom Menace. She was recognized as a rising star, but Pirates elevated her to international prominence. In Dead Man's Chest, Knightley's role evolved significantly. Elizabeth is no longer just a governor's daughter or a romantic interest. She becomes a strategic thinker and active participant in the pirate world. Knightley brought intelligence, emotional depth, and a sense of independence to the character, helping redefine female roles in blockbuster adventure films. The film's success allowed her to transition into more diverse and critically acclaimed roles later, including period dramas and award-nominated performances. One of the standout additions to the sequel is Bill Nighy as Davy Jones. Nighy was already a respected actor in British cinema and theater, known for films like Love Actually. However, Dead Man's Chest introduced him to a much wider global audience. His performance as a tentacle pirate lord, achieved through groundbreaking motion capture technology, is both terrifying and deeply tragic. Nighy's ability to convey emotion through layers of digital effects was crucial. Davy Jones is not just a villain. He is a figure defined by heartbreak, betrayal, and rage. Nighy's voice work, physicality, and subtle expressions gave the character a haunting presence. This role became one of the most memorable motion capture performances of its time and helped push the boundaries of what digital acting could achieve. Jack Davenport returns as Commodore James Norrington, bringing a sense of fallen nobility to the character. Previously introduced as a rigid and honorable officer, Norrington in this film is broken and disgraced. Davenport's performance captures this shift with nuance, portraying a man struggling with lost identity and pride. Jonathan Pryce reprises his role as Governor Weatherby Swan, offering a portrayal of authority tempered by paternal concern. His performance adds emotional grounding, particularly in scenes involving Elizabeth. Lee Ehrenberg and Mackenzie Crook return as Pintel and Rigetti, providing comic relief while also contributing to the film's pirate ensemble dynamic. Their chemistry and timing help maintain the franchise's balance between humor and adventure. Additionally, Naomi Harris appears as Tia Dalma, a mysterious and mystical figure. Harris brought an enigmatic presence that hinted at deeper mythological elements within the story. Her role, though limited in this installment, will become more significant in later films. Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest, released in 2006, quickly transcended the realm of being just another blockbuster sequel to become a significant cultural phenomenon. Its impact reached far beyond the cinematic box office, influencing fashion, pop culture, media, and even inspiring social trends. The film arrived at a time when fantasy and adventure franchises were dominating global entertainment, and it contributed to shaping the cultural zeitgeist of the mid-2000s. One of the most immediate and visible impacts was the reinforcement and global popularization of the pirate aesthetic. While pirate imagery had existed in literature, theme parks, and earlier films, Dead Man's Chest transformed the pirate into a stylish, humorous, and charismatic antihero figure. Johnny Depp's portrayal of Jack Sparrow, with his dreadlocked hair, eyeliner, eccentric gait, and quirky mannerisms, became instantly recognizable. This look inspired everything from Halloween costumes to music videos, advertisements, and fashion accessories. The character became a symbol of irreverence, unpredictability, and charm, and elements of his style appeared in both mainstream and subcultural fashion. Dreadlocks, braided accessories, and layered pirate-inspired clothing saw a noticeable uptick in popularity, particularly among younger audiences seeking to emulate a sense of adventurous freedom. Beyond fashion, the film had a profound influence on language and humor. Jack Sparrow's idiosyncratic speech patterns, nonlinear logic, and witty one-liners entered the cultural lexicon. Phrases such as savvy and humorous misdirections were widely quoted and parodied, appearing in television shows, comedy sketches, and online meme culture. Social media platforms of the time featured fan edits, GIFs, and videos mimicking Sparrow's unique walking style and facial expressions, contributing to an early era of viral content in the online entertainment landscape. The film's humor bridged generational gaps, appealing to both younger audiences discovering adventure cinema and older viewers appreciating its tongue-in-cheek wit. The film's cultural influence extended to theme parks and merchandising as well. Disney capitalized on its success by incorporating Jack Sparrow and elements from Dead Man's Chest into attractions, merchandise, and special events. Costumes, toys, and collectibles became immensely popular, creating an ecosystem of consumer engagement that extended the film's presence beyond theaters. Video games and action figures based on the characters further cemented its cultural footprint. This merchandising success demonstrated how a film could become a multidimensional cultural product, blending cinematic storytelling with lifestyle marketing and interactive entertainment. Dead Man's Chest also had notable influence within media itself. Numerous television shows, films, and online parodies referenced the film's characters, particularly Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones. Late-night comedy shows frequently performed sketches lampooning Sparrow's behavior, often using exaggerated imitations of his walk, gestures, and voice. Animated programs incorporated visual nods to the film, and internet communities created fan art and fan fiction, expanding upon its world. The character of Davy Jones, with his tentacle-face appearance and tragic backstory, became a visual shorthand for horror adventure antagonists in both online and traditional media, inspiring discussions about the blending of practical and digital effects to create memorable villains. The film's influence even extended into gaming and interactive media. Pirate-themed video games, some tied directly to the franchise and others independent, adopted stylistic cues from Dead Man's Chest. This included character mannerisms, ship designs, and the motif of cursed treasure. Role-playing games also embraced the idea of morally ambiguous pirate heroes, showing the film's impact on narrative structures in other media. The combination of action, comedy, and supernatural elements created a template for adventure storytelling that influenced creators beyond cinema. On a broader societal level, the film helped revive interest in historical piracy, though filtered through a fantastical lens. Young viewers became curious about the real history of pirates, maritime trade, and naval adventures, leading to increased attention on books, documentaries, and educational content on these topics. The romanticized portrayal of pirates as clever, rebellious, and adventurous figures contrasted with the historical reality, yet contributed to a fascination with maritime history that persisted in popular culture. Dead Man's Chest also reflected and shaped ideas of heroism and morality in mainstream media. The film popularized the notion of antiheroes, characters who operate outside traditional moral frameworks but maintain audience sympathy, illustrated most clearly through Jack Sparrow. This approach to character development influenced subsequent films and television shows, where morally complex protagonists became increasingly prevalent. Audiences were encouraged to embrace ambiguity, questioning traditional notions of right and wrong, which mirrored broader cultural conversations about ethics, personal freedom, and leadership. Additionally, the film contributed to the ongoing globalization of entertainment. It became a worldwide phenomenon, with major box office success across North America, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. This global reach amplified the spread of its visual style, humor, and dialogue, allowing diverse audiences to engage with its narrative and characters in different cultural contexts. International marketing campaigns, translated scripts, and localized merchandise ensured that the film's impact was not limited to English-speaking audiences, cementing its position as a landmark in global pop culture. In terms of historical significance, Dead Man's Chest marked a turning point in the blockbuster sequel model. It demonstrated that a follow-up film could be both commercially and culturally significant while expanding the narrative and character development from the original. The film's box office success, driven by anticipation for returning characters and escalating stakes, helped reinforce the viability of multi-film franchises in the 2000s. Its achievement contributed to Hollywood's focus on cinematic universes, cross-media tie-ins, and long-term storytelling strategies that would dominate the next 2 decades. The production of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest was a massive undertaking, combining large-scale stunts, complex visual effects, and intricate set pieces across multiple international locations. The film was directed by Gore Verbinski, who returned in the first installment with a clear vision to expand the franchise's scope while maintaining the quirky humor and swashbuckling adventure that audiences loved. Verbinski faced the challenge of creating a sequel that was bigger, more epic, and more fantastical than the original, while ensuring that the ensemble cast maintained their chemistry and that the narrative did not become overwhelmed by spectacle. Principal photography took place in multiple locations, including the Caribbean islands, Hawaii, and the United Kingdom. One of the most iconic filming sites was Hawaii's Kauai Island, which provided dramatic coastal cliffs and lush tropical forests that became the backdrop for key ship and beach sequences. The production team also utilized extensive sets built at the Bahamas studios, where the interiors of the Flying Dutchman, the Black Pearl, and other ships were meticulously constructed. These sets were designed to be both historically suggestive and fantastical, reflecting a world where supernatural elements coexist with realistic pirate life. One of the most significant behind-the-scenes challenges involved the integration of groundbreaking visual effects. The character of Davy Jones, portrayed by Bill Nighy, was created almost entirely through computer-generated imagery, using motion capture technology that was advanced for its time. Nighy wore a full motion capture suit and facial markers to record subtle expressions, gestures, and movements. The animators then painstakingly translated these motions into a tentacle-faced pirate with a highly detailed, digitally rendered appearance. This process required close collaboration between Nighy, Verbinski, and the visual effects team, and often involved long hours to ensure that the performance retained emotional authenticity despite the heavy digital overlay. Practical effects were also heavily utilized, particularly for ship sequences and stunts. The Flying Dutchman, the Black Pearl, and other vessels were outfitted with intricate rigs to simulate movement and battle conditions. Actors often performed on partial set pieces that tilted, rocked, or moved along hydraulics to recreate the motion of the sea, requiring physical stamina and precise timing. Many of the action sequences involved elaborate choreography, including sword fights, cannon fire, and daring leaps between ships. The combination of practical and digital effects created a seamless cinematic experience, but also demanded extensive coordination among stunt coordinators, effects teams, and actors. Filming at sea presented its own challenges. Ocean conditions were unpredictable. Weather could delay shooting for days, and maintaining continuity between shots required careful planning. Scenes were often shot in segments, with actors performing on studio sets against green screens that would later be integrated with digital water and skies. Despite the technical demands, the actors embraced the immersive nature of the production. Johnny Depp, known for his improvisational style, often added spontaneous elements to his scenes, creating moments of unpredictability that the crew had to adapt to. These improvised touches became some of the most memorable moments in the film, adding to its charm and humor. The costume and makeup departments faced equally complex tasks. Johnny Depp's Jack Sparrow costume required extensive layering, with intricate details like beaded dreadlocks, belts, sashes, and trinkets that reflected the character's roguish personality. The makeup team also worked extensively on Davy Jones, integrating prosthetics and motion capture to transform Nye into a visually terrifying yet expressive villain. Tia Dalma, portrayed by Naomi Harris, required a combination of hairstyling, body paint, and elaborate costumes to evoke her mystical presence, and her sequences often involved careful coordination with lighting and visual effects to maintain the character's otherworldly aesthetic. The sound design was another area of intensive collaboration. The film featured sequences with enormous soundscapes, including massive ship battles, kraken attacks, and supernatural events. The sound team recorded layers of real-world sounds, such as cannon blasts, rope tension, and ocean waves, and it enhanced or manipulated them to create an immersive auditory environment. Composer Hans Zimmer returned to score the sequel, blending orchestral music with nautical motifs and electronic textures to heighten tension and emotion. Verbinski worked closely with the composer to ensure that the music mirrored narrative beats, character arcs, and visual spectacle. Crew anecdotes reveal both the intensity and camaraderie of the shoot. Orlando Bloom recalled the physical demands of sword fight sequences, where multiple takes require continuous stamina and precise timing. Keira Knightley noted that some stunts push her out of her comfort zone, particularly those involving high platforms or simulated falls. Johnny Depp was known for extensive improvisation, sometimes altering scenes on set, which created occasional challenges for continuity, but also led to some of the film's most iconic comedic beats. Bill Nye described the motion capture process as both exhausting and exhilarating, as he had performed intense emotional scenes while wearing restrictive technology. Another interesting aspect of production involved the Kraken sequences. The Kraken, a massive tentacled sea creature, was entirely computer-generated, but its movements and interactions with ships and actors required precise coordination. Actors often reacted to placeholders or green screen markers representing the Kraken's tentacles, relying on timing, imagination, and direction to sell the presence of a creature that would not appear in post-production until months later. The seamless integration of live action and CGI in these scenes became a benchmark for future blockbuster effects. Directorial choices in Dead Man's Chest emphasized pacing, suspense, and escalating stakes. Verbinski used rapid cuts, dynamic camera angles, and varying shot scales to maintain tension during complex sequences, while also allowing moments of humor and character development to breathe. The film balanced intimate character interactions with large-scale action, ensuring that the narrative did not become overshadowed by spectacle. The director's commitment to practical effects, authentic performances, and immersive set design contributed to the film's status as a technical and artistic achievement. Post-production was equally ambitious. Editors worked for months to combine live-action footage, practical effects, and computer-generated imagery into coherent sequences. Color grading was applied to maintain the warm, sun-soaked palette of the Caribbean, while darker scenes involving the Flying Dutchman and Davy Jones received cooler tones to evoke dread and tension. Sound mixing integrated orchestral music, dialogue, environmental effects, and Foley work, ensuring that every frame was both visually and orally compelling. Pirates of the Caribbean. Dead Man's Chest opens immediately after the events of the first film, picking up the intertwined stories of Captain Jack Sparrow, Will Turner, and Elizabeth Swann. The film's narrative is structured as a fast-paced adventure that blends elements of comedy, romance, suspense, and supernatural fantasy, with multiple converging storylines that heighten tension and maintain audience engagement throughout its runtime. The story begins with Jack Sparrow discovering that he owes a blood debt to the legendary sea captain Davy Jones, whose supernatural powers and command of the Flying Dutchman make him both feared and nearly unstoppable. This debt sets the central conflict of the film in motion, creating a sense of urgency and suspense that drives Jack's every action. The opening sequences establish the stakes quickly, using both visual and narrative exposition. We see Davy Jones' supernatural influence through glimpses of monstrous sea creatures, cursed treasures, and ominous imagery, immediately signaling that the film will escalate the stakes from the first installment. Jack's characteristic blend of cunning, wit, and erratic behavior contrasts with the menacing presence of Jones, creating a tension between comedic relief and genuine peril that persists throughout the narrative. The film carefully balances these tonal shifts, ensuring that audiences remain emotionally invested while being entertained. Parallel to Jack's storyline, Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann are engaged in their own arc, dealing with love, loyalty, and moral responsibility. Elizabeth, now more assertive and independent, is determined to protect those she cares about, while Will struggles with questions of honor, vengeance, and personal duty. These character-driven threads interweave with Jack's quest, creating a complex narrative structure where multiple objectives collide, intersect, and occasionally conflict. The film uses these interweaving plot lines to maintain a dynamic rhythm, alternating between high-stakes action sequences and intimate character moments that deepen the audience's emotional connection to protagonists. The narrative introduces a series of escalating obstacles and plot twists. Jack must locate the chest containing Davy Jones' heart to escape servitude, but he faces betrayal, misdirection, and interference from rival pirates, the East India Trading Company, and even his own allies. This quest structure drives the film forward, with each new revelation or setback compelling characters to adapt their strategies. The film uses suspense effectively, often delaying the resolution of key questions, such as the true allegiance of certain characters or the fate of specific treasures, to maintain tension and audience engagement. One of the film's most memorable sequences is the introduction of the Kraken, a colossal sea monster under Jones' control. This sequence is pivotal in both narrative and thematic terms. It reinforces the supernatural danger posed by Jones, establishes him as an almost unstoppable antagonist, and heightens the stakes for Jack and his companions. The film uses visual spectacle and tightly choreographed tension to ensure that the scene delivers both fear and awe, creating one of the defining moments of the franchise. The Kraken also functions narratively as a force that disrupts plans, reminding viewers that the world the characters inhabit is governed by both human cunning and unpredictable supernatural elements. The film's midpoint intensifies the narrative complexity. Alliances shift as characters act according to self-interest or emotional impulse. Jack's cunning is pitted against formidable adversaries, while Will and Elizabeth must navigate moral dilemmas that test their loyalty and courage. The narrative uses dramatic irony effectively, allowing audiences to understand the stakes and impending consequences even when characters remain unaware, thus amplifying tension. These twists, betrayals, and strategic maneuvers maintain a rapid pacing while deepening engagement with character motivations. The climax of Dead Man's Chest is multi-layered. It is not a single confrontation, but a series of converging sequences that test each protagonist. Jack faces off with Davy Jones aboard the Flying Dutchman, while Will, Elizabeth, and other pirates confront both personal and external conflicts. The climax integrates practical stunts, visual effects, and character-driven moments, combining spectacle with narrative resolution. Dramatic reveals, such as hidden motives or unexpected rescues, provide emotional payoffs while leaving certain narrative threads unresolved, setting the stage for the next installment in the series. The film's denouement is particularly notable for its cliffhanger ending, which has become a defining feature of the franchise. Jack's fate remains uncertain, alliances are unresolved, and the potential for further conflict looms large. This narrative choice reinforces audience anticipation and positions Dead Man's Chest as part of a larger serialized story rather than a standalone adventure. It also underscores a structural strategy in blockbuster filmmaking, where sequels are designed to sustain audience interest over multiple installments. Structurally, the film uses parallel narratives, episodic action sequences, and recurring motifs to maintain cohesion. Motifs such as a heart in the chest, the cursed crew of Davy Jones, and Jack's signature compass provide thematic continuity, while also guiding the audience through complex plot developments. Visual cues and recurring symbols help reinforce narrative threads, ensuring that despite the film's rapid pacing and multiple converging storylines, viewers can follow character motivations and plot progression. The pacing of Dead Man's Chest is deliberate in its peaks and valleys. Action sequences are intense, frequent, and visually elaborate, often involving multiple ships, supernatural creatures, or complex stunts. These sequences are interspersed with moments of character introspection, humor, or dialogue-driven tension, allowing the audience to process the narrative and connect emotionally with the characters. This alternating rhythm prevents fatigue and keeps the storytelling dynamic. Another aspect of narrative sophistication is the film's use of moral ambiguity and character complexity. Jack Sparrow, while the central figure, operates according to self-interest, deception, and improvisation, often creating unpredictable outcomes. Will and Elizabeth's arcs involve personal sacrifice, loyalty, and ethical dilemmas. Even antagonists such as Davy Jones are portrayed with depth, including moments of vulnerability and tragic motivation, creating a rich tapestry of interwoven stories that elevate the film beyond a simple good versus evil framework. Pirates of the Caribbean. Dead Man's Chest explores a rich tapestry of themes and employs symbolism that extends beyond the surface-level swashbuckling adventure. At its core, the film examines freedom, power, loyalty, love, morality, and identity, using both narrative and visual elements to convey deeper meaning. While it is a blockbuster designed for entertainment, the film consistently embeds thematic depth, allowing audiences to engage with its ideas on multiple levels. One of the most central themes is freedom versus obligation. Jack Sparrow epitomizes a desire for personal freedom, constantly resisting authority, societal norms, and obligations. His pursuit of autonomy drives much of plot, particularly in his efforts to avoid servitude to Davy Jones. The chest containing Jones' heart functions symbolically as an embodiment of control and entrapment. Whoever possesses it gains power over Jones, and by extension, over the fates of others. This dynamic establishes a recurring tension between individual agency and external constraints, highlighting how freedom is both coveted and precarious. Loyalty and betrayal are also key thematic concerns. Throughout the film, characters frequently navigate conflicting allegiances. Jack betrays, deceives, and manipulates those around him, yet moments of genuine loyalty and friendship emerge, particularly between him and Will Turner. Elizabeth Swann struggles with divided loyalties, torn between her love for Will and her desire to survive and protect others. Davy Jones, too, embodies betrayal in both his personal history and his interactions with others, illustrating how past betrayals can shape character and motive. The recurring question of who can be trusted drives suspense and provides moral complexity, challenging audiences to consider the nuances of loyalty and the consequences of betrayal. Love and loss form another thematic layer. The romance between Will and Elizabeth is a motivating force for both characters, shaping their decisions and sacrifices. Their love is tested by external threats, personal ambitions, and supernatural forces, reflecting fragility of relationships in a chaotic world. Davy Jones' tragic backstory with the sea goddess Calypso serves as a counterpoint, exploring love twisted into obsession, regret, and vengeance. This juxtaposition reinforces a theme that love can inspire heroism and connection, but can also lead to downfall and moral compromise. Identity and transformation are explored extensively through character arcs. Jack Sparrow's identity is fluid, constantly reinvented to navigate changing circumstances. His unpredictability reflects a broader philosophical inquiry into how identity is constructed and performed in the context of power, survival, and societal expectation. Will and Elizabeth, while more traditionally heroic, experience transformations as they navigate moral dilemmas, personal fears, and the responsibilities imposed upon them. Davy Jones represents a cautionary tale of identity corrupted by grief and obsession, his monstrous form symbolizing the externalization of internal torment. Power and mortality are underscored through the supernatural elements of the film. Davy Jones embodies both authority and inevitability, controlling the Kraken, commanding the Flying Dutchman, and enforcing contracts with ruthless precision. His power serves as a metaphor for the inescapability of death and the consequences of moral choices. The chest containing his heart symbolizes ultimate leverage, the ability to control life and death itself. The film repeatedly contrasts the desire for power with its costs, showing that ambition, greed, and manipulation often lead to personal suffering or unforeseen consequences. The Kraken serves as a symbolic force within the story, As a massive, nearly unstoppable sea creature, it represents the uncontrollable consequences of one's actions, the primal forces of nature, and the looming threat of mortality. The Kraken's appearances are marked by fear and destruction, yet also operates as a narrative catalyst, forcing characters to confront danger, make decisive choices, and reveal their true priorities. The creature embodies the unpredictability of the world, reinforcing themes of chaos, consequence, and human limitation. Another notable symbolic element is the compass that Jack carries. Unlike ordinary compasses, it points toward what its holder desires most, functioning as a symbol of guidance, ambition, and moral ambiguity. The compass allows Jack to navigate both literal and figurative journeys, often leading him to success or disaster depending on his choices. It reinforces a theme that direction in life is determined not only by circumstance, but by desire, intent, and moral judgment. Ships in the film are also deeply symbolic. The Black Pearl represents freedom, autonomy, and the spirit of adventure, while the Flying Dutchman embodies bondage, fear, and the supernatural. The contrast between these vessels mirrors the tension between liberty and constraint, choice and fate. The visual design of each ship, weathered hulls, towering masts, tattered sails, reflects their narrative significance, providing visual metaphors for the character arcs and thematic concerns that unfold on board. Curses and supernatural forces in Dead Man's Chest serve as metaphors for the consequences of human action. Davy Jones' crew, cursed to serve indefinitely and become grotesque in form, reflects the dangers of unchecked ambition, betrayal, and moral compromise. These supernatural punishments highlight the recurring motif that every choice carries weight, and that personal desires, when pursued without foresight, can lead to eternal consequences. The narrative also explores the tension between morality and pragmatism. Jack's decisions often bend ethical boundaries, yet he demonstrates pragmatism in the face of impossible odds. Will's moral code guides him, but it is tested repeatedly by situations that require compromise or risk. Elizabeth operates in the gray area between morality and survival, making choices that challenge conventional notions of heroism. These dynamics allow the film to explore the complexity of ethical decision-making in a morally ambiguous world, suggesting that heroism is often situational rather than absolute. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest is a visual spectacle that combines intricate cinematography, sophisticated lighting, dynamic camera work, and deliberate color design to create a cinematic world that is both immersive and narratively expressive. The film's visual style plays a crucial role in establishing tone, emphasizing character, and reinforcing themes, making cinematography a central storytelling tool rather than a mere backdrop to action. One of the most prominent aspects of the film's visual style is its use of lighting to establish mood and atmosphere. Outdoor sequences on tropical islands, open seas, and sun-drenched beaches are bathed in naturalistic light, often with warm golden tones that evoke the romanticized adventure of classic pirate stories. These sequences contrast sharply with the darker, more dramatic lighting used in scenes aboard the Flying Dutchman, Davy Jones' domain, and other supernatural settings. Cool blues, muted greens, and deep shadows dominate these environments, creating a sense of foreboding, danger, and moral ambiguity. Lighting is also used to enhance character traits. Jack Sparrow is often illuminated with soft, directional light that highlights his expressive features and eccentric mannerisms, emphasizing both charm and unpredictability. The cinematography incorporates a variety of framing techniques to convey scale, perspective, and emotional resonance. Wide shots are frequently employed to capture the expanse of the Caribbean, the majesty of ships at sea, and the grandeur of natural landscapes. These shots create a sense of adventure and freedom, while visually establishing the stakes of naval battles and oceanic peril. Conversely, close-ups and medium shots are used to emphasize character expressions, subtle gestures, and interpersonal tension. Jack Sparrow's signature smirks, raised eyebrows, and nervous glances are highlighted through careful close framing, making his comedic timing and emotional nuance more immediate for the audience. Dynamic camera movement is another defining feature of the film. The cinematography frequently utilizes tracking shots, crane movements, and sweeping pans to follow characters through complex environments, both on land and aboard ships. During action sequences, handheld camera work adds a sense of immediacy and chaos, placing viewers directly in the midst of sword fights, cannon battles, and shipboard skirmishes. The interplay between fluid camera movements and precise choreography ensures that action remains coherent and visually thrilling without sacrificing narrative clarity. Slow-motion sequences are sparingly used, often during critical moments of suspense or dramatic reveal, to heighten emotional impact. Color grading and palette choices are carefully tailored to the film's narrative shifts. Bright, saturated colors dominate scenes of adventure, humor, and camaraderie, reinforcing the energetic and whimsical tone of Jack Sparrow's escapades. Darker, desaturated palettes accompany sequences involving danger, supernatural threat, or moral ambiguity. For example, the Flying Dutchman and its crew are often rendered in muted blues and grays, with mist shadows and fog creating a haunting, otherworldly environment. This deliberate contrast in color reinforces a thematic duality between freedom and entrapment, lighthearted adventure and deadly consequence. Set design and visual motifs are closely integrated with cinematography to reinforce the film's visual identity. Ships, islands, and towns are composed of attention to detail, texture, and depth. The Black Pearl, with its sleek black hull and tattered sails, conveys speed, freedom, and danger, while the Flying Dutchman, encrusted with barnacles and tentacle-like rigging, evokes decay, supernatural menace, and eternal servitude. Camera angles often emphasize these contrasts. Low-angle shots of the Flying Dutchman accentuate its imposing presence, while high-angle shots of Black Pearl capture the freedom and agility of its captain. Special effects and compositing are integrated seamlessly into the cinematography, creating a believable fusion of practical and digital elements. Digital renderings of Davy Jones, the Kraken, and other supernatural phenomena interact convincingly with live-action footage, thanks to careful attention to perspective, lighting, and motion. The filmmakers use depth of field, shadow, and texture to ensure that these effects blend organically with practical sets, allowing the audience to remain immersed in the story world. Sequences like the Kraken attack or ship battles rely on precise visual planning and complex compositing to achieve clarity, scale, and intensity, ensuring that the visual narrative supports both action and suspense. Cinematic techniques, such as framing, blocking, and composition, are used to reinforce relationships and power dynamics between characters. Jack Sparrow is frequently positioned slightly off-center or in skewed framing, reflecting his unpredictability and chaotic approach to life. Will and Elizabeth often occupy symmetrical or balanced compositions during scenes of cooperation, symbolizing trust, shared purpose, or romantic connection. Davy Jones' presence is accentuated through dramatic negative space and looming compositions, visually reinforcing his authority, menace, and supernatural dominance. The film also employs visual foreshadowing and symbolic imagery. Recurring motifs, such as anchors, chains, and tentacles, appear in both practical set elements and digital effects to reinforce themes of bondage, control, and entrapment. The interplay of light and shadow often hints at moral ambiguity or impending danger, guiding audience perception without explicit dialogue. Reflective surfaces, mist, and water textures are used to suggest uncertainty, hidden motives, or shifting loyalties, creating a layered visual storytelling approach. Camera lenses and depth of field choices contribute to the immersive quality of the film. Wide-angle lenses emphasize the vastness of the sea and isolation of characters, while shallow depth of field isolates individuals, focusing attention on emotional responses or key narrative moments. During action sequences, rack focus is occasionally employed to shift attention between foreground and background activity, highlighting simultaneous events that influence character decisions and plot outcomes. The visual style also draws from classic swashbuckling cinema while incorporating modern sensibilities. Nods to traditional adventure cinematography, such as heroic low-angle shots, sweeping establishing shots, and dramatic silhouettes, are combined with contemporary digital effects, dynamic movement, and intricate production design. This synthesis creates a visual aesthetic that feels both timeless and contemporary, appealing to audiences familiar with traditional adventure films while providing modern spectacle. Pirates of the Caribbean. Dead Man's Chest relies heavily on its soundtrack and sound design to create atmosphere, heighten emotion, and immerse the audience in its adventurous, supernatural world. The film's music, composed by Hans Zimmer, builds on the themes introduced in the first film, while expanding the auditory palette to accommodate darker, more intense sequences. The score, combined with meticulous sound design, functions not just as accompaniment but as a narrative tool, guiding viewers' emotional responses emphasizing tension and reinforcing character arcs. The opening sequence of the film establishes the auditory tone immediately. High-pitched string motifs and sweeping orchestral swells signal both adventure and urgency, reflecting the chaos and unpredictability of Jack Sparrow's escapades. These musical cues reinforce his eccentric personality, often combining playful rhythmic patterns with dramatic undertones to suggest that humor and danger coexist in equal measure. The recurring Jack Sparrow theme, characterized by lively strings, rapid percussion, and unexpected harmonic shifts, becomes a signature auditory motif, instantly signaling his presence and mood changes. Hans Zimmer's composition for Dead Man's Chest incorporates nautical and supernatural elements to reflect the film's dual nature. Lower brass, deep percussion, and ominous choirs accompany sequences involving Davy Jones and the Flying Dutchman, evoking dread, supernatural power, and the inevitability of mortality. This contrasts with lighter, more adventurous themes used during open-sea pursuits, ship battles, and character-driven moments of heroism or humor. The musical contrast reinforces a thematic tension between freedom and bondage, adventure and danger, and life versus death. Sound design plays a crucial role in creating the immersive world of the Caribbean and its supernatural elements. Practical and digital sounds are layered to produce a convincing and dynamic environment. The creak of ship hulls, the flapping of sails, the rushing of ocean waves, and the impact of cannon fire are all meticulously recorded and mixed to create spatial realism. These elements are designed to make the audience feel the motion and weight of each ship, the force of each cannonball, and the chaos of battle, providing both narrative context and emotional intensity. The Kraken sequences exemplify the integration of music and sound design. The creature's massive tentacles are accompanied by low-frequency rumbles, distorted environmental sounds, and layered percussive effects, creating a sense of scale and terror. These sounds are combined with rising orchestral swells to build suspense and highlight the enormity of the threat. Silence and sudden audio gaps are occasionally employed just before Kraken strikes, heightening tension and surprise. The careful synchronization of visual and auditory cues ensures that audiences are not merely observers, but emotionally engaged participants in the scene. Davy Jones' presence is reinforced through a unique combination of sound effects and musical motifs. His tentacle-like appendages, barnacle-encrusted body, and supernatural abilities are accentuated by subtle textures in the audio mix, including watery gurgles, scraping metal, and ethereal tones. These sounds not only emphasize his monstrous appearance, but also convey the character's emotional depth and tragic backstory. Nye's vocal performance is carefully processed and integrated with digital effects to retain expressiveness while reinforcing his otherworldly presence. The auditory design for Jones serves as a narrative device, signaling danger, moral consequence, and narrative significance whenever he appears. The film's dialogue is carefully balanced within the soundscape. Comedic moments, such as Jack Sparrow's improvisational lines or witty exchanges with other characters, are mixed to ensure clarity and timing, preserving humor without being overshadowed by musical or environmental elements. Dramatic or emotional dialogue, particularly in scenes involving Will and Elizabeth, is supported by underscoring music that subtly emphasizes stakes, romantic tension, or moral dilemmas. Sound mixing ensures that dialogue, music, and effects are harmonized, allowing narrative beats to land effectively. Action sequences showcase an intricate interplay between sound effects and musical scoring. Ship-to-ship battles feature layered audio components, cannon fire, splintering wood, crashing waves, and shouted commands. These are complemented by rhythmic percussion and brass motifs in the score, creating a sense of momentum, danger, and urgency. The choreography of auditory elements mirrors the visual choreography of battle, enhancing spatial awareness and emotional engagement. Viewers can almost feel the heaving of the ships, the impact of explosions, and the peril of the characters' maneuvers through the precise alignment of music and effects. The soundtrack also reinforces thematic elements beyond action. Romantic moments between Will and Elizabeth, or emotional beats involving Davy Jones' tragic past, are underscored by lush strings, solo woodwinds, and harmonic progressions that evoke longing, regret, and tenderness. Even subtle motifs, such as repeating melodic fragments, are used to cue emotional resonance or foreshadow plot developments. Music becomes a narrative voice, expressing what characters cannot say or highlighting the emotional weight of decisions, alliances, and betrayals. Ambient sounds further enhanced the film's realism and atmosphere. Tropical birds, ocean spray, wind through rigging, and distant storms are recorded and manipulated to provide environmental depth. These elements are not static but vary dynamically with camera perspective, character movement, and plot tension, creating a living, breathing world. The interaction between diegetic sounds, originating from the film world, and non-diegetic music score is carefully balanced to support immersion while guiding audience focus. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest received a mix of critical acclaim and audience enthusiasm upon its release in 2006, reflecting both the film's commercial strengths and its perceived narrative and stylistic limitations. Commercially, the film was an enormous success, grossing over $1 billion worldwide and setting multiple box office records. It became one of the highest-grossing films of its time and further cemented the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise as a major cultural and economic force. Audiences responded enthusiastically to the return of beloved characters, escalating action sequences, and expansion of the film's supernatural mythology. Critically, the film received generally positive reviews, with particular praise directed at its visual spectacle, innovative special effects, and Johnny Depp's performance as Jack Sparrow. Critics lauded Depp's ability to balance eccentric comedy with charm and cleverness, describing his portrayal as the central driving force that elevated the film above typical action-adventure fare. Bill Nighy's performance as Davy Jones was also highlighted for its technical and emotional accomplishment, particularly in rendering a fully digital character that maintained expressive subtlety and narrative weight. Many reviewers noted that the motion capture work set new benchmarks in visual effects, blending realism with fantasy in ways that were unprecedented for mainstream blockbusters at the time. However, the film's reception was not uniformly positive. Some critics expressed concerns regarding complexity and length of plot, suggesting that the multiple converging storylines, rapid pacing, and cliffhanger ending could overwhelm viewers or leave narrative threads unresolved. The film's nearly 2.5-hour runtime was cited as a potential drawback, particularly for audiences expecting a tighter, more self-contained story. Some reviews suggested that while the spectacle and humor were engaging, the story sometimes relied too heavily on visual effects and action set pieces at the expense of coherent storytelling. Audience reception was generally enthusiastic, reflecting the film's status as a blockbuster sequel designed for mass appeal. Fans praised the chemistry between the main cast, the expansion of the pirates' mythos, and the thrilling action sequences, from ship battles to the climactic Kraken encounter. The combination of humor, romance, and supernatural intrigue resonated strongly with audiences, particularly younger viewers and fans of the first film. Jack Sparrow's antics and memorable one-liners became instantly quotable, contributing to the film's cultural impact and enduring popularity. Dead Man's Chest also attracted attention for its technical achievements. Visual effects teams were widely recognized for their seamless integration of practical and digital elements, particularly in creating Davy Jones and the Kraken. The use of motion capture technology for a fully expressive antagonist was considered groundbreaking and influenced subsequent blockbuster productions. The film's ability to combine realistic ship movement, oceanic environments, and fantastical elements drew praise for its ambitious production values. Cinematography, lighting, and costume design were similarly recognized for their contribution to a cohesive and visually arresting cinematic experience. The film was not without controversy or debate. Some critics noted that the increased emphasis on spectacle, complex plot lines, and darker tones marked a departure from the comparatively simpler narrative and swashbuckling charm of the first installment. Certain reviews criticized moments where humor was perceived as overly slapstick or where character motivations were obscured by narrative complexity. Nevertheless, these criticisms were often balanced by acknowledgement of the film's ambition and entertainment value. Award recognition reflected both technical and performance achievements. Johnny Depp received nominations for his portrayal of Jack Sparrow, reaffirming the character's enduring appeal and the actor's skill in blending comedy and charisma. The film also received awards and nominations for visual effects, sound design, and production design, reflecting collaborative efforts of the technical crew. While it did not dominate traditional acting or writing awards, recognition in technical categories highlighted the film's innovative approach to cinematic craft and its contributions to advancing blockbuster filmmaking standards. The film's reception also revealed generational and cultural divides in audience perception. Younger viewers often embrace the humor, fast pacing, and visual spectacle, while some older critics and more traditional film analysts focused on narrative cohesion and character development. This disparity underscores the film's position as both a mass-market entertainment product and a technically ambitious production, balancing commercial appeal with cinematic innovation. The franchise's growing emphasis on serialized storytelling, with cliffhangers and interconnected plot lines, was met with excitement by fans, but occasionally frustration by critics seeking a self-contained story. In popular culture, the film's reception translated into enduring engagement. Jack Sparrow's mannerisms, dialogue, and style became widely recognizable, and fans frequently discussed plot twists, character choices, and the implications of Davy Jones' mythology. The cliffhanger ending, which set the stage for the third installment, created anticipation and extended audience investment beyond the initial viewing experience. The film's success in generating discussion, speculation, and fan engagement reflects its role not just as entertainment, but as a cultural event in the summer blockbuster season. In summary, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest received strong audience approval and mixed to positive critical reception. Its achievements in performance, visual effects, sound design, and technical execution were widely celebrated, particularly Johnny Depp's portrayal of Jack Sparrow and the groundbreaking rendering of Davy Jones. Critiques focus on narrative complexity, runtime, and tonal balance, yet these were often outweighed by the film's spectacle, humor, and immersive world-building. Its reception demonstrated the evolving expectations for blockbuster sequels, blending character-driven storytelling, high-stakes action, and cutting-edge effects to create an experience that was commercially successful, culturally influential, and technically innovative. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest left a lasting legacy in both cinematic history and popular culture, influencing filmmaking, franchise strategies, character archetypes, and audience expectations. Its success demonstrated that sequels could expand upon original material while achieving unprecedented commercial and cultural impact. The film's influence is multifaceted, encompassing technological innovation, storytelling, merchandising, and long-term franchise development. One of the most significant aspects of the film's legacy is its impact on visual effects and motion capture technology. Bill Nighy's performance as Davy Jones, which relied heavily on motion capture and digital rendering, set a new benchmark for fully realized digital characters in live-action cinema. The emotional expressiveness achieved through this technique demonstrated that digital characters could carry both narrative weight and complex emotion, influencing subsequent blockbuster films such as Avatar, the Lord of the Rings sequels, and Marvel's Cinematic Universe productions. The success of these digital characters validated the use of motion capture as a credible tool for storytelling rather than just spectacle. Dead Man's Chest also shaped the evolution of franchise filmmaking. The film's cliffhanger ending and serialized storytelling introduced audiences to a model in which sequels were interconnected narratives rather than standalone adventures. This approach influenced later franchises, such as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Hobbit trilogy, and the Star Wars sequels, demonstrating the commercial and narrative advantages of multi-installment arcs. By emphasizing character continuity, escalating stakes, and ongoing mysteries, Dead Man's Chest created a blueprint for maintaining audience engagement across multiple films. The character of Jack Sparrow, popularized by Johnny Depp, became an enduring cultural icon. Sparrow's eccentric mannerisms, witty dialogue, and moral ambiguity redefined a cinematic pirate archetype, moving away from purely heroic or villainous depictions toward a more complex anti-heroic model. This characterization influenced subsequent adventure films, television shows, and video games, inspiring a generation of roguish, charismatic protagonists who operate outside traditional moral boundaries. The archetype of the unpredictable, clever, yet morally flexible hero owes much to Sparrow's widespread popularity. Merchandising and cross-media influence were also significant. Dead Man's Chest contributed to an extensive ecosystem of products, including action figures, costumes, video games, toys, books, and theme park attractions. Disney leveraged the film's popularity to create immersive experiences, incorporating the characters, ships, and storylines into park events, interactive games, and merchandise collections. The film's commercial strategy demonstrated the potential for cinematic properties to generate revenue and cultural engagement across multiple platforms, reinforcing the model of transmedia storytelling that has become central to blockbuster franchises. The film's influence extended to narrative and genre conventions. Its successful blending of adventure, comedy, romance, and supernatural fantasy encouraged other filmmakers to combine genres in ways that appeal to broad audiences. The film's tonal balance, mixing humor with tension, character-driven drama with epic action, has been emulated in subsequent family-oriented action-adventure films, demonstrating the effectiveness of combining spectacle with character depth. Dead Man's Chest also had a lasting effect on cinematic sound and score. Hans Zimmer's orchestral motifs, combined with percussive and nautical elements, influenced subsequent adventure and fantasy films by demonstrating how music can both anchor character identity and amplify narrative stakes. The recurring Jack Sparrow theme and motifs associated with supernatural elements, such as Davy Jones, became references for how music can signal character presence and narrative tension without overt exposition. The film influenced global perceptions of pirate mythology, popularizing a romanticized, adventurous, and fantastical view of piracy. The stylized depiction of ships, pirate codes, cursed treasure, and maritime folklore reshaped public understanding and imagination of the era. This representation influenced literature, games, and educational content, inspiring curiosity about historical piracy while simultaneously blending it with fantasy. The franchise's blending of historical reference with myth and supernatural elements created a template for adventure storytelling that transcends strict historical accuracy. Its legacy is also evident in the continuing careers of its cast. Johnny Depp's role as Jack Sparrow became a defining performance, influencing casting choices and character development in adventure and franchise films. Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley's continued involvement in high-profile projects was bolstered by their participation in the franchise, which demonstrated their capacity to balance action, romance, and dramatic depth. Bill Nighy's Davy Jones elevated motion capture acting to critical recognition, influencing both actors and directors in approaching digitally enhanced performances. The commercial success and critical impact of Dead Man's Chest spurred additional sequels, including Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End, On Stranger Tides, and Dead Men Tell No Tales. These films build upon the narrative and stylistic foundation established in Dead Man's Chest, particularly in terms of serialized storytelling, character continuity, and visual effects innovation. The influence of Dead Man's Chest can also be traced to spin-offs, video games, theme park experiences, and literary adaptations, all which expanded the franchise's cultural footprint. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest elicited strong reactions from audiences worldwide, with many viewers responding not just to its action and spectacle, but also to its humor, characters, and moral complexity. The film resonated across generations, appealing to both younger viewers experiencing the thrill of pirate adventure for the first time and older audiences who appreciated the combination of wit, drama, and visual innovation. Audience reflection and interpretation reveal how the film impacted perceptions of heroism, morality, and fantasy storytelling. For many viewers, Jack Sparrow became the central figure through which they experienced the story. His unpredictable, improvisational approach to challenges, his moral ambiguity, and his humorous antics resonated strongly with audiences. Viewers admired his cleverness and resilience, often interpreting him as a symbol of freedom and rebellion against authority. Some audiences connected deeply with Sparrow's improvisation as a metaphor for navigating life's uncertainties, seeing him as a character who thrives by embracing chaos and ingenuity. This interpretation elevated him beyond comic relief, transforming him into an emblematic figure of individualism and cunning. Audiences also reflected on the themes of loyalty, friendship, and love. The relationship between Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann provided an emotional anchor amid the film's chaos. Viewers often empathized with their struggles to balance personal desire, moral integrity, and duty, interpreting their choices as relatable reflections of the tension between love and responsibility. Many young viewers connected with the romantic subplot as an aspirational narrative, while older audiences appreciated the ethical dilemmas embedded in their decisions. The interplay between personal loyalty and larger narrative stakes offered audiences opportunities to engage with questions of trust, honor, and commitment in both personal and communal contexts. The film's depiction of supernatural threats, particularly Davy Jones and the Kraken, elicited awe, fear, and fascination. Audiences were drawn to the imaginative rendering of these elements, with some interpreting them symbolically as representations of mortality, consequence, and uncontrollable forces in life. Viewers often engage in discussions about the balance of human agency versus fate, with Davy Jones embodying the inevitability of debt, obligation, and karmic retribution. The supernatural aspect allowed audiences to explore abstract ideas through spectacle, giving emotional and philosophical weight to narrative while providing thrilling entertainment. Humor in Dead Man's Chest also shaped audience interpretation. Jack Sparrow's eccentricities, comic timing, and verbal misdirection created laughter and delight, often acting as a counterpoint to darker themes. Audiences recognized that humor served as both character expression and narrative tool, easing tension while revealing personality traits and relational dynamics. Some viewers interpreted the humor as a commentary on the absurdity of rigid moral codes or hierarchical structures, appreciating the film's ability to entertain while subtly questioning authority, social norms, and conventional heroism. Audiences frequently reflected on the visual and aesthetic qualities of the film. The grandeur of the ships, the lushness of the Caribbean setting, and the intricate design of supernatural elements like the Flying Dutchman contributed to immersion. Viewers interpreted these visuals as signs of epic storytelling, often perceiving the film as a cinematic experience that transcended ordinary adventure films. Younger audiences were captivated by the spectacle, while adult viewers appreciated the craftsmanship, production values, and attention to detail. The visual elements allowed audiences to engage imaginatively with the story world, fostering discussion about both narrative possibilities and technical achievement. The serialized storytelling structure of Dead Man's Chest, particularly its cliffhanger ending, influenced audience perception and engagement. Viewers were aware that the narrative was part of a larger saga, prompting reflection on character arcs, unresolved conflicts, and anticipated future events. This structure led to active audience participation, with fans speculating about future plot developments, character choices, and potential resolutions. Forums, fan communities, and social discussions reflected a heightened level of engagement as audiences collectively analyzed, debated, and interpreted narrative possibilities. Cultural and generational context shaped audience interpretation as well. For younger viewers, the film was often seen as a thrilling, comedic adventure filled with pirates, fantastical creatures, and clever schemes. The focus was on entertainment, humor, and action, with characters' moral ambiguity adding complexity to the experience. Older audiences, or those familiar with pirate lore and classical adventure narratives, often reflected on the film's thematic content, narrative intricacy, and moral questions. They interpret the story as a combination of moral exploration and spectacle, considering themes such as honor, debt, consequence, and human capacity for both heroism and selfishness. Audiences also reflected on character morality and ethical ambiguity. Jack Sparrow's self-serving actions prompted debate about heroism and ethics. Some viewers admired his cleverness, ingenuity, and survival instincts, while others questioned his frequent betrayals and unpredictability. This ambiguity allowed audiences to explore complex ethical questions, considering whether success or survival justifies morally questionable decisions. Will Turner's commitment to honor and Elizabeth Swann's courage were often contrasted with Jack's approach, prompting reflection on differing moral philosophies and their narrative consequences. Interactivity of audience response was enhanced by the film's humor, quotable dialogue, and memorable scenes. Catchphrases, gestures, and comedic moments became cultural touchpoints, with fans repeating lines, reenacting scenes, or creating fan art in videos. This participatory engagement strengthened the connection between audiences and the film, turning spectatorship into a shared cultural experience. The film's humor and dramatic tension encouraged discussions about storytelling techniques, character development, and thematic interpretation, further enhancing its impact on viewers. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest is notable for its intricate character development and the evolution of key figures throughout the story. While the film delivers high-octane action and fantastical spectacle, the narrative invests significantly in the growth, moral complexity, and relational dynamics of its central characters. Each of the main protagonists, Jack Sparrow, Will Turner, Elizabeth Swann, and Davy Jones, undergoes transformative experiences that shape their motivations, relationships, and personal trajectories, contributing to both narrative depth and audience engagement. Jack Sparrow remains the most unpredictable character, defined by his cunning, humor, and moral ambiguity. In Dead Man's Chest, Jack's character is tested in ways that highlight both his strengths and vulnerabilities. His debt to Davy Jones places him under existential threat, forcing him to navigate increasingly dangerous circumstances with wit, improvisation, and opportunistic cunning. Jack's arc is less about conventional moral growth and more about strategic adaptation and self-preservation. However, through moments of loyalty, clever negotiation, and unexpected self-sacrifice, audiences witness the emergence of a more nuanced understanding of his character. He is not purely selfish or chaotic, but capable of strategic alliances and moments of ethical consideration. His improvisational genius, unpredictability, and flair for theatrics are emphasized through both dialogue and action, demonstrating growth in terms of resourcefulness and emotional resilience. Will Turner's character arc emphasizes moral integrity, courage, and emotional maturity. In the first film, Will's motivations are largely shaped by his desire to rescue Elizabeth and honor his father's legacy. In Dead Man's Chest, he faces moral dilemmas that challenge his adherence to honor and principle. Confronted with danger, supernatural threats, and the treacherous landscape of pirate politics, Will must navigate a world where ethical clarity is blurred. His arc involves balancing loyalty to Elizabeth, the desire to protect others, and the necessity of taking bold, sometimes morally ambiguous action. Will's transformation is evident in his growing assertiveness, strategic thinking, and ability to act decisively under pressure, reinforcing his development from an inexperienced blacksmith into a capable and principled adventurer. Elizabeth Swann experiences significant development in this film, evolving from a supportive figure into an independent, assertive, and resourceful protagonist. She demonstrates courage and adaptability, actively participating in planning, combat, and negotiation rather than merely reacting to events around her. Her arc explores themes of empowerment, agency, and moral discernment. Elizabeth's interactions with both Will and Jack illustrate her negotiation of loyalty, desire, and pragmatic decision-making, highlighting her growth as a character capable of navigating complex social and moral landscapes. Her development also reinforces broader thematic concerns, such as a tension between personal freedom and relational responsibility. Davy Jones serves as both antagonist and a figure of tragic depth, with his character arc rooted in betrayal, lost love, and the consequences of obsession. While he is initially presented as a monstrous and terrifying supernatural presence, further exploration reveals his past connection with Calypso, the sea goddess, and emotional trauma that led to his ruthless and tyrannical nature. His character embodies a tension between personal desire, betrayal, and moral corruption, offering audiences a complex villain whose actions are motivated by grief, revenge, and distorted loyalty. Jones' arc functions narratively to challenge the protagonist, elevate stakes, and explore themes of mortality, power, and the cost of vengeance. His transformation is less about redemption than about the interplay between tragedy and menace, creating a compelling antagonist whose narrative significance extends beyond the immediate story. Secondary characters, such as Captain Teague, Lord Cutler Beckett, and Tia Dalma, also experience subtle development that influences the main arcs. Captain Teague, Jack's father, reinforces the theme of legacy and familial complexity, providing insight into Jack's eccentricity and unconventional morality. Lord Cutler Beckett exemplifies corporate authoritarianism and the ruthless pursuit of power, challenging the protagonist and illuminating broader themes of control and ambition. Tia Dalma, as a mystical figure, demonstrates agency and knowledge, guiding events while maintaining her enigmatic presence. These secondary arcs enrich the primary characters' journeys and deepen the narrative texture. Relationships between characters evolve dynamically, contributing to character development. Jack will oscillate between rivalry and reluctant collaboration, with trust earned gradually through shared danger and strategic necessity. Jack and Elizabeth share a moment of tension and alliance, often reflecting negotiation between personal gain and mutual interest. Will and Elizabeth's romantic arc is tested by external threats and moral dilemmas, illustrating the complexity of love under pressure. Davy Jones' interactions with Jack and other characters emphasize fear, manipulation, and moral consequence, reinforcing both narrative tension and thematic resonance. The film also explores ethical and moral growth. Characters are confronted with situations requiring choice under uncertainty, often balancing personal interest, loyalty, and ethical standards. Jack's pragmatism challenges conventional notions of heroism, while Will's steadfast adherence to honor demonstrates a tension between idealism and pragmatism. Elizabeth's ability to navigate threats strategically reflects a growing understanding of leadership and moral discernment. Even minor characters display evolving awareness and adaptability in response to the film's escalating dangers. Symbolism is integrated into character arcs, reinforcing thematic development. Jack's compass, for example, not only drives narrative action, but also reflects his pursuit of desire, adaptability, and unpredictability. Davy Jones' chess symbolizes control, power, and the consequences of human desire, influencing the decisions and growth of all major characters. Ships themselves, including the Black Pearl and the Flying Dutchman, function as extensions of character identity, representing freedom, responsibility, or entrapment depending on the individual's relationship to them. These symbolic elements deepen audience understanding of character motivation and growth. The structure of character development is intertwined with narrative escalation. As challenges grow in complexity, from ship battles to supernatural threats, characters must adapt, revealing hidden skills, courage, or moral flexibility. Moments of crisis illuminate character strengths and weaknesses, allowing the audience to track transformation through both action and dialogue. Climactic sequences, such as confrontations with Davy Jones or the Kraken, function as crucibles for testing character resolve, providing opportunities for meaningful growth or revelation. Pirates of the Caribbean. Dead Man's Chest demonstrates exceptional attention to costume and set design, both of which are integral to storytelling, character development, and world building. The visual richness of the film emerges not just from special effects or cinematography, but from the intricate layers of costume and environment, which communicate character personality, social hierarchy, historical context, and emotional tone. These elements function as narrative devices, providing audiences with immediate cues about who characters are, their roles in the story, and the cultural or fantastical world they inhabit. Costumes in Dead Man's Chest are detailed and multilayered, reflecting both practicality for action sequences and the narrative identity of each character. Jack Sparrow's ensemble is perhaps the most iconic, combining tattered coats, scarves, belts, trinkets, and a weathered tricorn hat to convey his eccentricity, resourcefulness, and pirate status. Every accessory, from beads in his hair to the various weapons strapped across his torso, reinforces his unpredictability and improvisational nature. The layering and texture of his clothing also allow for a sense of history. Each piece suggests a life of adventure, plunder, and survival at sea. This meticulous attention to detail ensures that audiences immediately perceive Jack as both chaotic and charming, reflecting his personality without relying solely on dialogue or action. Will Turner's costumes emphasize practicality, professionalism, and moral integrity. His clothing, typically a combination of leather, linen, and simple pirate attire, reflects his role as both a blacksmith's son and a morally upright adventurer. His outfits allow for physical agility during combat, while signaling his grounded and earnest personality. Subtle variations in his attire over the course of the film, including more battle-ready or formal appearances, visually track his character's growth from novice adventurer to experienced pirate capable of strategic decision-making. Elizabeth Swann's costumes signify her transition from a conventional social role to an empowered, resourceful figure. Early in the film, her attire retains elements of high social status and elegance, using fine fabrics and structured forms. As the narrative progresses and she becomes more actively involved in pirate life and action sequences, her costumes shift toward functional, layered clothing that allows freedom of movement while maintaining distinctive visual flair. These costume choices reflect her growing agency, resilience, and willingness to confront danger directly, signaling her evolution to the audience. Davy Jones' costume and makeup design represent a seamless blend of practical and digital artistry. His barnacle-encrusted coat, weathered textures, and aquatic motifs were designed to integrate with his fully digital tentacle beard and decayed humanoid form. The costumes provide visual continuity with the nautical theme while reinforcing his supernatural and tragic nature. Each element, from rope-like adornments to shell-encrusted buttons, reinforces his character's connection to the sea and his role as a cursed, otherworldly antagonist. The design conveys both power and decay, emphasizing the consequences of obsession and emotional corruption. Supporting characters' costumes also reinforce social hierarchy, occupation, and narrative function. Members of the East India Trading Company wear formal, rigid uniforms reflecting authority, bureaucracy, and oppression, contrasting sharply with the more fluid, chaotic, and individualized clothing of the pirate crew. Minor pirates, crew members, and townspeople are outfitted with distinct garments that communicate their skills, allegiances, and temperament. These variations allow audiences to interpret character roles quickly and intuitively, enhancing narrative clarity. Set design in Dead Man's Chest is equally elaborate, creating immersive environments that reinforce both story and theme. Ship interiors, island villages, tropical forests, and supernatural locations are rendered with exceptional detail, providing visual depth and texture. The Black Pearl's design, with its dark hull, tattered sails, and intricate rigging, communicates freedom, danger, and agility. Conversely, the Flying Dutchman, covered in barnacles, seaweed, and twisted rigging, visually embodies entrapment, supernatural power, and decay. The contrast between these ships is heightened by production design choices, lighting, and camera angles, reinforcing their narrative symbolism. Island and port sets contribute to a sense of realism and historical context, while accommodating the film's fantastical elements. The use of weathered wood, tropical vegetation, and densely constructed interiors evokes the period's aesthetic while allowing for dynamic action sequences. Marketplaces, taverns, and fortresses are populated with props and set dressing that reflects socioeconomic status, cultural identity, and environmental storytelling. The clutter, texture, and scale of these locations make the world feel lived in and functional, allowing audiences to suspend disbelief while engaging with both plot and character interaction. The supernatural and fantastical environments are carefully integrated into set design. Davy Jones' domain, undersea landscapes, and mystical locales are constructed with a combination of practical sets, digital augmentation, and atmospheric elements like fog, lighting, and water effects. These choices emphasize danger, mystery, and moral consequence, enhancing thematic depth while ensuring narrative clarity. Atmospheric design, including muted palettes, reflective surfaces, and underwater textures, conveys unease and reinforces the supernatural stakes. Props play a key role in linking costume and set design to character and narrative. Weapons, compasses, treasure chests, maps, and magical artifacts are all crafted with visual storytelling in mind. Jack's compass, which points toward the holder's greatest desire, is both functional within the story and symbolic of his pursuit of freedom and personal ambition. Similarly, Davy Jones' chest is a central plot device whose physical presence communicates power, danger, and moral consequence. These props are visually consistent with both character and environment, integrating seamlessly into action sequences and thematic exploration. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest relies heavily on sharp, witty, and often morally ambiguous dialogue to advance the story, develop character, and sustain its unique blend of humor, adventure, and suspense. The screenplay crafts a narrative that balances complex plotting with memorable character moments, using dialogue not only to convey information, but to reveal personality, relationships, and underlying themes. The writing emphasizes timing, rhythm, and interplay between verbal and visual storytelling, allowing the film to maintain engagement across its extended runtime. The dialogue in Dead Man's Chest is notable for its playful irreverence and clever wordplay. Jack Sparrow's lines, in particular, blend humor, subterfuge, and charm. His speech patterns, often circuitous, self-referential, and punctuated by exaggerated pauses or gestures, create a sense of unpredictability while conveying intelligence and improvisational skill. These verbal quirks reinforce his persona, signaling both comedic intent and narrative cunning. Audiences often interpret Jack's dialogue as a reflection of his moral ambiguity, as his words frequently mask self-interest while enabling him to manipulate situations to his advantage. The dialogue also establishes rapport and tension with other characters, creating layers of subtext that reward attentive viewers. The screenplay balances exposition and action through character-driven dialogue. For instance, conversations between Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann provide necessary narrative context while simultaneously conveying romantic tension, personal motivation, and ethical reflection. These exchanges use language to reveal inner conflicts and relational dynamics, allowing audiences to understand stakes beyond visible action. The writing ensures that exposition feels integrated into character interaction rather than artificial or forced, maintaining narrative flow even in complex story sequences. Davy Jones' dialogue is carefully crafted to reflect his otherworldly authority and tragic backstory. His speech is deliberate, haunting, and occasionally laced with poetic or archaic phrasing, enhancing the supernatural aura surrounding him. The script integrates his dialogue with the motion capture performance, allowing emotion and menace to come through even in a fully digital character. Lines such as his contracts, warnings, or curses carry weight because of precise word choice and pacing, conveying the consequences of disobedience or betrayal in a way that elevates narrative tension. Humor is a consistent thread woven into the script. Beyond Jack Sparrow's eccentric speech, humor emerges from situational irony, character interaction, and clever juxtaposition of high stakes with absurdity. Moments of levity are strategically placed to balance suspense or action, providing audiences relief while maintaining narrative momentum. Secondary characters, such as Mr. Gibbs, also contribute comedic dialogue that reflects loyalty, skepticism, and commentary on unfolding events. This layered approach ensures that humor serves both character development and audience engagement, reinforcing the film's tone and accessibility. The pacing of dialogue contributes to tension and narrative momentum. Rapid exchanges often occur during battles, negotiations, or chase sequences, mirroring the urgency and chaos of events. Conversely, slower, reflective conversations punctuate moments of moral consideration or emotional introspection, allowing audiences to absorb narrative stakes and character motivations. The script's rhythm, therefore, is integral to audience experience, blending moments of suspense, humor, and exposition in a coherent and engaging manner. Memorable lines and recurring motifs enhance the film's identity and cultural footprint. Jack Sparrow's quips, idiosyncratic metaphors, and philosophical asides are widely quoted, reinforcing the character's distinct voice. These lines often function as narrative signposts, foreshadowing plot developments or revealing hidden intentions. Similarly, phrases related to Davy Jones' mythology, the cursed chest, or the Kraken establish a lexicon for the film's supernatural elements, ensuring that fantastical plot points are comprehensible and resonant for audiences. The script uses dialogue to explore moral ambiguity and ethical tension. Characters frequently negotiate between personal desire, loyalty, and survival, and their words reflect internal conflict and external negotiation. For example, Jack's bargaining, deception, or alliances are conveyed through layered dialogue, revealing both cunning and vulnerability. Will and Elizabeth's verbal exchanges explore duty, love, and ethical choice, emphasizing character growth and relational dynamics. These verbal strategies allow audiences to interpret character decisions within moral and thematic frameworks, deepening engagement beyond action spectacle. The screenplay also integrates exposition organically through dialogue, avoiding heavy-handed narration. Complex plot elements, such as contract with Davy Jones, the significance of the heart in the chest, and the hierarchy of pirate alliances, are revealed through conversational exchanges rather than overt description. This method ensures that audiences acquire necessary information while remaining immersed in character-driven interaction. Exposition delivered in this way reinforces personality, relational dynamics, and narrative tension simultaneously. Tone modulation through dialogue is another strength of the script. Moments of horror, suspense, or supernatural dread are communicated with concise, often ominous language that complements visual and auditory cues. Humor, in contrast, relies on timing, wordplay, and character-specific quirks. The careful calibration of tone across dialogue ensures that shifts between comedy, romance, action, and supernatural horror feel intentional and seamless, sustaining narrative cohesion despite a complex, multi-layered plot. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest was marketed as a major blockbuster event, with a multifaceted campaign designed to generate anticipation, engage audiences across demographics, and maximize box office revenue. The promotional strategy was notable not only for its scale and scope, but also for its integration of traditional media, digital platforms, and immersive experiences, setting new standards for marketing large-scale franchise films. The approach combined trailers, posters, merchandise, interactive campaigns, and cross-promotional partnerships to position the film as both an entertainment spectacle and a cultural phenomenon. Trailers were a cornerstone of the marketing campaign, carefully crafted to highlight the film's adventure, humor, and supernatural intrigue without revealing critical plot points or the cliffhanger ending. Theatrical trailers emphasized action sequences, comedic moments from Jack Sparrow, and the formidable threat of Davy Jones and the Kraken. The pacing of the trailers mirrored the film's rhythm, combining rapid montage cuts with slower, suspenseful reveals to entice audiences while communicating the film's tone. Teaser trailers were released months in advance to generate early buzz, while subsequent trailers progressively revealed more visual spectacle, character interactions, and narrative stakes to sustain audience interest. Poster design played a complementary role, visually communicating the film's identity and tone. Posters frequently featured Jack Sparrow prominently, his distinctive appearance signaling humor, charisma, and adventure. Davy Jones and supernatural elements were often included to establish narrative tension and highlight stakes. Color schemes, lighting, and composition were used to differentiate adventure and fantasy elements, while emphasizing key characters and their relationships. International variations of posters adjusted visual emphasis to appeal to cultural sensibilities and regional marketing strategies, ensuring broad global resonance. Digital marketing campaigns were innovative for the period, reflecting early integration of social media, interactive websites, and online promotional content. Official websites feature character profiles, interactive maps, downloadable wallpapers, and behind-the-scenes videos that engaged audiences in exploratory experiences. Fans could learn about the lore of the Black Pearl, Davy Jones' mythology, and pirate codes through these digital platforms, fostering both engagement and immersion. Online contests, teaser releases, and newsletters helped sustain excitement in the months leading up to the premiere, leveraging emerging internet marketing trends. Merchandising was a central component of the promotional strategy. Action figures, playsets, costumes, collectibles, and branded apparel allowed audiences to interact tangibly with the film's world. Video games, tie-in novels, and board games expanded narrative engagement, enabling fans to explore plot lines, characters, and settings in interactive ways. These products reinforce brand loyalty while cultivating anticipation for both the film and subsequent sequels. Theme parks and interactive exhibits incorporated elements from the movie, allowing audiences to experience ships, supernatural environments, and character encounters firsthand, merging marketing with experiential entertainment. Cross-promotional partnerships amplified the film's reach. Fast food chains, retail stores, and consumer brands collaborated on theme promotions, special edition products, and giveaways, creating widespread visibility and accessibility. These partnerships integrated the film into everyday experiences, reinforcing brand recognition and driving both box office attendance and merchandise sales. The global nature of the campaign ensured consistent messaging while allowing regional adaptation to cultural and commercial contexts. Press tours and media appearances played a pivotal role in humanizing the film and generating personal engagement with audiences. Lead actors, including Johnny Depp, Keira Knightley, and Orlando Bloom, participated in interviews, talk shows, and fan events that emphasized both the film's spectacle and its narrative appeal. Behind-the-scenes insights, anecdotes about filming, and commentary on character development were leveraged to deepen audience connection and investment in the story. Director and crew interviews emphasized technical innovation, visual effects, and production scale, appealing to both casual moviegoers and enthusiasts interested in cinematic craftsmanship. Premiere events and experiential marketing created high-impact, memorable public attention. Lavish red carpet events, themed exhibitions, and immersive experiences in major cities highlighted the film's adventurous and fantastical elements. Fans could encounter recreated pirate ships, props, and costume performers, merging spectacle with tangible engagement. These events encouraged media coverage, fan-generated content, and word-of-mouth promotion, creating a sense of shared excitement and communal participation. International marketing strategies adapted messaging to regional audiences while preserving the core identity of the film. Trailers, posters, and online content were translated and culturally contextualized, emphasizing local preferences for character focus, humor, and action. International premieres and media appearances were coordinated to maximize visibility and global anticipation, ensuring the film achieved strong performance in markets across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. The marketing also leveraged narrative hooks to sustain interest between films. Cliffhanger elements, mystery surrounding Davy Jones' chest, and the unresolved fate of key characters were highlighted in promotional materials without revealing resolutions. This approach encouraged audience speculation, discussion, and anticipation for the next installment, creating a serialized engagement model that extended beyond the initial theatrical release. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest can be best understood in relation to both its predecessor and contemporary adventure films, revealing how it innovated within the swashbuckling genre while establishing new standards for blockbuster sequels. When compared to the original Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, Dead Man's Chest expands narrative scope, deepens character complexity, and elevates visual spectacle while sharing continuity in tone, humor, and thematic focus. Whereas the first film introduced audiences to the world of Jack Sparrow, Cursed Treasure, and the Black Pearl, the sequel emphasizes serialized storytelling, higher stakes, and more ambitious supernatural elements. The narrative structure of Dead Man's Chest differs significantly from its predecessor. The first film largely followed a self-contained adventure arc, focusing on the recovery of the cursed treasure and establishing character dynamics. In contrast, Dead Man's Chest adopts a more complex, multi-threaded plot, involving Davy Jones' heart, the Kraken, and competing allegiances among pirates, the East India Trading Company, and individual characters. This shift toward interconnected storylines reflects a broader trend in blockbuster filmmaking towards serialized narratives, where sequels serve as both continuation and escalation rather than isolated adventures. The sequel therefore demands greater audience engagement and comprehension, offering rewards in narrative complexity, suspense, and character development. Visually, Dead Man's Chest surpasses the first film in scale and technical sophistication. The Flying Dutchman, Davy Jones, and the Kraken are fully realized through advanced motion capture and digital effects, establishing benchmarks for realism and emotional expressiveness in CGI characters. By comparison, The Curse of the Black Pearl relied on a combination of practical effects, makeup, and limited digital augmentation. The sequel's commitment to immersive, highly detailed digital environments and character designs not only enhances spectacle, but also deepens narrative believability, particularly in the portrayal of supernatural elements and maritime action sequences. Character development in Dead Man's Chest also expands on established archetypes. Jack Sparrow's eccentricity and moral ambiguity are further explored through increased narrative challenges and interactions with Davy Jones and other pirates, while Turner and Elizabeth Swann demonstrate growth in courage, agency, and ethical discernment, reflecting more complex arcs than in the first installment. The antagonist, Davy Jones, introduces a level of narrative and psychological complexity absent in the first film, serving as both an immediate threat and a figure whose past and motivations are explored. Compared to contemporary adventure films, such as the Indiana Jones sequels or the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Dead Man's Chest emphasizes morally ambiguous protagonists and multifaceted antagonists, blending humor, drama, and fantasy in a distinctive manner. In terms of genre comparison, Dead Man's Chest blends traditional pirate tropes with supernatural fantasy, expanding beyond historical adventure films. While classical pirate films often relied on straightforward treasure hunts, sword fights, and clear moral binaries, Dead Man's Chest introduces a moral gray area, supernatural curses, and existential stakes, such as the control of the seas through Davy Jones' influence. This combination distinguishes the film from earlier adaptations and contemporary action-adventure cinema, positioning it as both a homage to swashbuckling tradition and a modern, technologically ambitious reimagining of the genre. Humor and tone also differentiate Dead Man's Chest from similar films. The screenplay balances slapstick, verbal wit, and situational irony, particularly through Jack Sparrow's dialogue, without undermining narrative tension. Compared to other blockbuster adventure films of the mid-2000s, which often favored either high-intensity action or broad comedy, Pirates of the Caribbean achieves a tonal balance that appeals to multiple demographics. The interplay between comedy and danger is carefully calibrated, allowing suspense, romance, and fantastical elements to coexist with humor seamlessly. In marketing and cultural impact, Dead Man's Chest represents a more ambitious global strategy than many contemporary films. Trailers, posters, merchandise, and digital engagement were coordinated to create a worldwide blockbuster event, leveraging character popularity, visual spectacle, and narrative suspense. Compared to standalone adventure films or sequels of the time, this integrated approach exemplifies how franchises can extend cultural and commercial influence across multiple platforms. The film's merchandising and tie-in products, from video games to toys, also position it as a transmedia phenomenon, influencing how subsequent franchises approached audience engagement and brand extension. Sequels that followed Dead Man's Chest, including Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End, and On Stranger Tides, build upon the narrative, visual, and tonal frameworks established in the film. These later installments increase scale and introduce new characters while continuing serialized storytelling, demonstrating the foundational role of Dead Man's Chest in shaping franchise trajectory. When compared to other long-running franchises, such as Star Wars or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Dead Man's Chest exemplifies a shift toward narrative escalation, continuity-driven audience investment, and high-concept visual design that became a hallmark of 21st-century blockbusters. In conclusion, comparative analysis shows that Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest distinguishes itself from both its predecessor and contemporary adventure films through its expanded narrative complexity, innovative visual effects, sophisticated character development, tonal balance, and ambitious marketing strategies. It retains the humor, charm, and swashbuckling elements of the first film while elevating spectacle, supernatural stakes, and ethical ambiguity. Compared to other franchises and adventure films, it set new standards for serialized storytelling, immersive world-building, and audience engagement, influencing both the direction of its own series and broader industry trends in blockbuster filmmaking. The film's combination of narrative ambition, technical innovation, and cultural resonance secures its place as a defining entry in the modern adventure genre.